respected dignitaries abroad, Honorable Chief Guest of this occasion, William Spady Garu, Honorable Guest of Honor, respected Guruji, Sri Anil Sahasrabudhe Garu, Honorable Guest of Honor, Sri Vinod Kumar Garu, Honorable Guest, Professor Wajid Hussain Garu, Honorable Guest, Professor Ilyas Sampa Garu, Honorable Guest, Professor Fang Mak, Honorable Guest, Professor Alan Rao, we had and respected principals, directors, HODs, professors of engineering colleges, junior colleges, schools across the country. We heartily welcome you for this grand inaugural function of launch of Telangana chapter of International Network for Outcome-Based Education, whose founder is Dr. William Spady. We are really blessed to have your presence here, sir. We welcome all the dignitaries with thunder of applause. So may I request, it hardly takes half. I understand that we have our honorable guest of honor, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe has a very important function. We'll try to finish the formal lighting of lamp as the mark of spread of knowledge. May I request our host here, the dignitaries, to kindly light the lamp as a mark of transfer of knowledge. It is my proud privilege to brief about the one and only, the organization which is trying to spread, transform 100% transformation of knowledge through the platform called International Network for Outcome-Based Education, which is called IN4OBE, is the world's genesis in implementation of authentic outcome-based education and global consultancy, featuring a committed team of visionary educational leaders and experts with lot of experience in educational transformation throughout the world. Professor William Spady, who is known internationally as the father of the OBE, is the founder and CEO of IN4OBE. Dr. Spady's experience and expertise in outcome-based education is unmatched globally, known internationally as the father of OBE. He has earned the reputation as a recognized worldwide pioneer in future-focused paradigm-shifting, personally empowering approaches to transformational OBE. For over 4 decades, he has spread major OBE initiatives throughout North America, South America, Australia, and Philippines, as well as Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, on expanding the vision, shifting the paradigm, and improving the performance of learners, educators, and educational systems. This work has blossomed his recognized expertise in organizational change, transformational leadership, leadership development, strategic organizational design, and elevated models of learning and living. With this brief introduction, due to positive and schedule of Honorable Chairman of AICT, it is my proud privilege to introduce Honorable Chairman of AICT, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe Garu. Anil Sahasrabudhe Garu is considered as the model guru for all of us with his simplicity and knowledge sharing. He believes in Sanghatchatvam Sambodatvam. That means share the knowledge, shower the knowledge, transform the knowledge, and help others. So I am indeed glad to mention His Highness, greatness, and he has showered, helped lot of institutions through his empowering messages, speeches, and he has really internalized lot of faculty members, including me. May I request Honorable Chairman of AICTE, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe Garu, to kindly address and wish all of us. Thank you so much. Over to Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe Garu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Altaf Hussain, for inviting me for this particular function. I'm very delighted. A very good morning to you all. Namaskar. This is very exciting at a time when we are all talking about new education policy, 1 year of its completion yesterday.
Sir.
And in the process, we have
Sir.
all said we must all concentrate on outcome-based education.
Sir.
Of the outcome-based education, who is with us today as the chief guest for today's program, Dr. Vinod Kumar, Dr. Wajid, Dr. Ilyas, all of you principals from different institutions, faculty members and students. It's very important that Telangana has taken care of this particular aspect of internationalizing a network in which they will participate in order to create our colleges to follow outcome-based education. In fact, from AICTE, National Board of Accreditation was formed, and then it became an independent entity as a society, and we are a signatory of the Washington Accord. There are about 20 odd countries, and the degrees awarded in these institutions which are accredited are recognized the world over. Who join the institutions may come from different backgrounds. That has no control. But how an institution or college or university transform these students into well-meaning products who go out into the system outside, be it as an employee in some organization or become an entrepreneur.
Sir. Sir, may I request you to kindly unmute, sir?
I think someone is muting. Someone else is opening their microphone.
Sir.
Mine is also getting off, actually.
Sir.
Anyway, I don't know how much heard it stopped, but my request is, this is a noble initiative, internationalization of resources being roped in, understanding the nuances of what is meant by outcomes. How do we relate outcomes with the kind of courses that we design? And every course, how do we measure the outcome? And in turn, at the end of the program, whether have we achieved those outcomes? I think this is a very complex task, but people like Dr. William Reddy, who have spent their whole life in understanding what is outcome-based education and trying to propagate it. And not only in the Northern America, Southern America, Asia, and Europe, So I think we are thankful to people like him who have joined this association, and all of you principals who will be attending this program. I'm seeing that Telangana chapter is a noteworthy chapter which has started this initiative. Please spread it to other states as well. All our institutions in all our states have to take a leaf out of Dr. Altaf Hussain, who has created this kind of a culture of internationalizing and then joining hands together. My best wishes. I'm sorry, I be disturbance. Before I'm trying to.
Sir, thank you so much. So kind of you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're really blessed. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words and encouragement for all of us. And we hope to transform and spread IN4OBE activities, especially in India, especially in Telangana. So kind of you, sir, for accepting our invitation and gracing the occasion. So kind of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. May I now request Professor Wajid Hussain, sir, to kindly address the gathering.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope I'm audible. I think we have to start with testing the system today. Dr. Altaf, can you hear me?
Hearty welcome you, sir.
Yes, there is a lot of crosstalk. Is it possible the other people who are in arrangements, they can switch off their mic, because the crosstalk is actually causing interference in the speaker's speech? Okay. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this great inauguration, and it was a wonderful address by Professor Anil from the AICTE, and especially the great leaps and bounds India is making with the Washington Accord, with a lot of initiatives, the national education policy last year. It's great to see these beautiful initiatives, and there's a whole bunch of aggressiveness actually internationally. Now, let me start with a little bit of background of what basically the network is about, and the history, a little bit of history of OBE. Now, in the last few decades, we have seen a remarkable change in conventional education systems. I will start with a little example. For instance, we have seen a phenomenal shift in educational feedback. And I remember when I went to school, this element of feedback was minimal. Students who failed, failed. And students who did well, did well. And they were destined to that way. But we know that karma or qadar or destiny is amenable, and it depends on our intentions and actions. So the bell curve, which existed with no real dynamics, it's actually existed. And reformation in education, with Carroll's model totally redefining attitude and moving away from definitions that were more racist, now to several key concepts of this approach being incorporated into Bloom's mastery learning model, and then the fundamental tenets of OBE systematically derived from several key elements of Bloom's 1968 mastery learning model of classroom instruction, formulated into a coherent system-focused framework by the Network for Outcome-Based Schools in 1980. The International Network for Outcome-Based Education, CEO Professor William Sperry, the father of OBE, coined the term OBE, developed its paradigm principles, and philosophy, him and his colleagues are widely respected, cited by tens and thousands of publications and governmental documents, and followed by millions across several continents of the world. 2 decades later, this proactive philosophy, its operating principles, became a major force for education change throughout North America, and today they reach into every continent level of education. These highly effective traditional approaches to OBE have now expanded, evolved into IN4OBE's future-focused 21st century emphasis on brain-compatible, empowering, learner-centered life performance work. Now we see in today's education a pronounced intention and effort to assess student performance, make modifications in pedagogy, in curriculum delivery, in assessment, and improve. This is a stark shift indeed. So this is the karma that we're talking about. This is the destiny that we're talking about, is subject to change and modification improvement. Now, as a result of these tangible benefits, hundreds of governments, accreditation bodies, universities, and education systems across the world are using outcome-based education as the rationale and focus of their quality improvement efforts. UNESCO reports indicate more than 95 countries with legislation now mandating outcome-based models. We talked about in India, the 2020 educational policy mandating outcome-based education systems and models with a tendency towards competency-based learning. Now, given the numerous bodies and their use of OBE, the term OBE has become a popular label or slogan that is used to justify about any kind of educational improvement initiative, whether real change or improvement results or not. There are many questions. What are outcomes? Why based? What is the scope of outcomes? What are outcomes, skills, and competencies? Are they all the same, or is there a difference? If there exists a difference, is it subtle or pronounced? How do they integrate or regulate education, or which phase or facet of education? Are outcomes today really student-centered, or have they become program or institution-centered? Is there an order or hierarchy or priority for the implementation of outcomes? Can we go any which way, or is there a system of application? Can national qualification frameworks help guide institutions develop and use outcomes? If so, how can that happen? Should they include learning progression or just qualifications information? Does our curriculum, instruction and pedagogy, assessment and evaluation truly align with our outcomes? What's entered in papers and forms, is it in actual practice? Do faculty write and use the right outcomes, or there's some confusion between objectives and outcomes, or are they the same? What more can accreditation agencies do? Is the language of outcome statements important at all? We can go on and on and on. As you see, the questions are many. There is a crucial need today for an authentic, consistent understanding of what OBE means, how it can be properly implemented, or what its potentials are. Since the past few decades, OBE has elevated from traditional to transitional and now transformational OBE. There is much to catch up with. We have moved away from the limitations of content, time-based systems, just numbers or scores, no matter they're accurate or not, or specific competencies, to an advanced, empowering, multi-dimensional, holistic, and comprehensive system and model of education. The International Network for Outcome-Based Education is a committed team of visionary educational leaders and consultants, bringing the transformational promise, mission, and practices of authentic outcome-based education to schools, universities, and educational organizations across the world. The IN4OBE, it exists to address and readdress an unfortunate state of confusion by providing the global education community with the most credible, insightful, coherent knowledge, research, and practice possible about OBE. We are dedicated to encouraging and advancing rigorous analysis, research, authentic applications, visionary theories, and address and amplify OBE's grounding tenets and their evolving applications. IN4OBE collaborates with educational organizations and institutions, whether private or public, in two modes: as a chapter of a jurisdiction and as affiliates. These are distinct roles, and there are responsibilities of the two modalities. The IN4OBE chapters and affiliates, they shall work with the headquarters to galvanize consultancy, dialogue, training, educational technology, regional and international events, and affiliations for enhancing qualification frameworks, accreditation standards and process, pedagogy, quality improvement efforts, to harbor emerging skills with transformational life performance roles. Our focus is on graduates who will be whole human beings, possessing holistic vision and elevated consciousness, and the required compassion necessary to appropriately apply both technical and transversal skills and knowledge to become leaders, contributors, team players, innovators, change agents of the future world, bringing global peace, justice, equity, opportunity to address global challenges like economic instability, pandemics, and climate change. With this, we congratulate you and pray for a successful, engaging, exciting future for the Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology as Telangana, India chapter of the IN4OBE. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for all the guests and participants, and hope to have a very exciting, engaging future with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful speech and encouragement to all of us, motivation to all of us. We hope to definitely reach all across India, especially in Telangana institutions, and transform as well as implement the objectives of outcome-based education. Thank you so much, sir. Now may I request Honorable Registrar of JNTU, Hyderabad, Professor Manzoor Hussain, sir, to kindly address the participants, principals, directors, professors across the nation. So it is my proud privilege to introduce about Professor Manzoor Hussain, sir. Professor Manzoor Hussain is the professor of mechanical engineering, started his career at JNTU University, Hyderabad, and rose to different positions, including Dean, Director of R&D, then Principal of Engineering College, as well as now honoring the chair as the Registrar of Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, under whose jurisdiction approximately 300 colleges are being governed. So, Professor Manzoor Hussain, sir, has been awarded as the best teacher by the government of Telangana for his outstanding accomplishments as a simple and noble teacher. So may I now request all the audiences to please welcome Professor Manzoor Hussain, sir, with thunder of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Good morning to all of you.
Very good.
It's a wonderful program. launch of technical Telangana chapter in international network for outcome-based education, and respected Professor Anil and the chairman ACT and all other dignitaries from India and abroad. It is a privilege for me to present few words related to your chapter, that is outcome-based education. As we all know, presently we are living in an era of information technology, where a large database information we are handling, lot of security features, cyber security we are looking in, and a lot of the technologies we are taking into the system, like artificial intelligence, deep learning, and machine learning, and most of the technologies now we are introducing. And a lot of changes are going through the education system in India and abroad. And we know that the education is the wealth of any country. So the quality education is going to give the quality manpower in that for application of the various technologies. So we are now looking at quality education. As a JNTU University in Telangana, we are spreading across the Telangana with around 300 colleges, and we have enough number of institutions we have started. Now we are focusing on the quality education. In the direction of the quality education, this outcome-based education is giving us a effective tool, where the curriculum we are developing, very dynamic curriculum we are developing. Every year we are introducing the required technology in our curriculum. The last year we have taken up artificial intelligence and machine learning and cyber security and deep learning technologies. For all the different technological programs like mechanical engineering, electronics and communication, and electrical engineering, apart from the computer and IT technology. So the organization has taken a step to establish a foundation, that is launching a chapter in Telangana for international network for outcome-based education. So this particular chapter is going to fulfill the gap between the technology and education system, where the current technology, what we need in the application in the industry and actual life will be coupled with the education system, so that the product coming out from the education institutions will be ready for the use by the industries for the application of the technologies. And also it is going to help us in knowing the world requirements, how the things are that is the academics are changing world over, so that the India and our students in India will take the benefit of the changes happening, so that we can cope up with the requirements of the international standards. With these few words, I congratulate the entire team for giving me this opportunity, and I hope this chapter is going to make a lot of changes in the education system in Telangana, as the chapter itself is meant for the Telangana. So across the Telangana, education institutions are going to take the advantage from this chapter, and I wish all the best for everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
About the JNTU H University initiatives towards implementing outcome-based education. Thank you so much for your encouragement. We hope that our chapter will reach all JNTU colleges in terms of implementing outcome-based education. So kind of you, sir. Thank you so much. May I now request our Honorable Chairman of Lord's Institute of Engineering and Technology, Sri Basha Mahiddin Garu, to address the gathering. So before that, it will be my proud privilege to introduce about Sri Basha Mahiddin Garu. He is a chartered accountant by profession as well as advocate. Started his career as the chartered accountant for the top-ranking company in the globe called LRDS Laboratories. So later, Sri Basha Mohiddin Garu realized that there is a need to empower education, especially engineering education, and started educational institutions in several places. And Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology has been accredited and taken several milestones under the leadership of leadership of Sri Basha Mohiddin Garu, including multiple times NBA accreditations, multiple times NAC accreditations, as well as ISO accreditations, as well as autonomous status. And I am really glad to state that in the Telangana region, especially across minority institutions, ours, Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology, is the only institution to have this honor and credentials. May I now request Sri Basha Mohiddin Garu to please address the gathering.
Good morning to our chief guest, Professor William G. Spaddy, founder and CEO of IN4OBE. Guest of honor, Sri B. Vinod Kumar Garu, Honorable Vice Chairman, Telangana State Planning Commission, Government of Telangana. Honorable Sri Anil Sahar Subodhe, Chairman AICT, New Delhi. Sri Professor MP Punia, Vice Chairman AICT. Sri Navin Mittal Garu, IAS, Commissioner of Technical Education, Government of Telangana. Sri VV Srinivasa Rao Garu, IPS, State Police Academy, Government of Telangana. Sri Pv Raja Rao Garu, IFS, Director, Telangana State Forest Academy. Sri Professor Katta Narasimha Reddy Garu, Vice Chancellor, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad. Sri Professor Venkata Ramana Garu, Vice Chairman, Telangana State Council of Higher Education. Sri Professor P. Lakshmi Narayana Garu, Registrar, Usmania University. Director, UGC, HRDC, JNTU, Hyderabad. And our special invitees from IN4OBE. Yes. Professor Wajid Hussain, Director, Quality Assurance, Islamic University in Medina, Saudi Arabia. Professor Alan Rowe, Vice President, retired, Kirkwood Community College, United States of America. Professor Ilyas Sampa, Program Director, Australian Institute for Higher Education, Australia. Professor Fong Mak, Professor, Gyanan University, Pennsylvania, USA. And other dignitaries who have joined us on the dais, principals, directors, deans, HODs, professors, school teachers, and other guests who have joined us virtually. On behalf of Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology, I welcome you all to the inaugural ceremony of IN4OBE Telangana chapter. In our everyday life, I believe everything we do is with the anticipation of an outcome, with an expectation of a desired result. In this, education is not different. Any and every education institution should have specific predefined targets, predefined desired outcomes they should work towards. All actions should be taken to achieve those outcomes. It allows us to focus on the things that matter. Our concerted efforts to achieve these outcomes allows for more successful students. We at large are working towards this from the date of this inception. Our efforts have translated into the desired results of getting an NBA accreditation multiple times. It is a testimony and proof of our outcome-based results. And also, we have got from National Accredited NAC Accreditation Council with the A grade multiple times. That also a testimony for our outcome-based education. Along with, we have also got University Grant Commission, the controller of the education. They have given the autonomous status for our institution for a period of 10 years because we proved ourselves that we are based on the outcome-based education we are providing. Our faculty has been practicing this format of outcome-based education for over a decade now, and look forward to further learning and defining themselves from Professor William Spaddy and his team of luminaries, who are considered to be global experts of OBE, and also extend our chapter services to all stakeholders of education in the education sector in Telangana and other parts of the country. The timing for the launch of this chapter is very appropriate now, because under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, and our Honorable Education Minister, Sri Dharmendra Pradhanji, the implementation of National Education Policy has realigned the education goals of the country. The National Education Policy recently introduced will be a game changer for the entire country to provide the quality education, to have a perfection, to have a technological development, so that every individual, whoever pursuing the studies, they should come out with the outcome-based education. Efforts of our Honorable Chief Minister, Sri K. Chandrasekhar Rao Garu, and his focus towards education has allowed the increase of the enrollment of downtrodden and minority and the other communities, where they are providing the 100% scholarship, which is the unique feature in the world. No state in the country, no place in everywhere, they are providing the education for downtrodden and yes, scheduled caste and poor students, so that they can afford to have a good education at the best of the institutions. This is a unique privilege to be a part of the citizen of Telangana. So likewise, his dynamic, the Municipal Administration Minister, K.T. Ramarao Garu, he is also doing the effort, making a lot of efforts for the improvement of the Telangana, in particular the Hyderabad. We have so many multinational companies of the old level companies, global companies. They have opened their second offices in Hyderabad. That itself a testimony how the government is considering the development of the state as well as the city of Hyderabad. Here, the government is also trying to make Hyderabad as a Mecca of technical education and Mecca of world-class educational institutions are highly commendable. Under the ACT leadership of Anil sir, one of the dignitaries here, under his dynamic leadership and his guidance, the ACT has made a lot of changes, and technical education has developed based on the quality. Everywhere the quality is being developed under the leadership of Mr. Anil Saharsbudhe, who is continuously doing very hard to improve the quality of education so that the Indian students can be compatible with the other countries. Anyhow, everybody is trying to develop this country as a human capital of the world, so that every technology can be improved in the country. In line with the efforts of the country and state, our team has planned for many activities in collaboration with the global experts from IN4OBE to help serve the education sector of Telangana and other states. I welcome all educationists and academicians to work with the chapter and work towards having a positive impact on society and students. I wish all the best. I wish all the best and congratulate for today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your nice address enlightening the government policies, university policies, especially AICTE, Government of Telangana, Government of India towards new educational policy. Thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful. Nice encouragement and enlightenment to all of us. May I now request Jayalakshmi Garu to please read the brief biodata of Ilyas Sampa, Professor Ilyas Sampa.
A very good morning to all of you. I feel privileged to introduce our next speaker, Professor Ilyas M. Sampa. Professor Ilyas M. Sampa is a curriculum and program director of Australian International School and Australian Institute of Higher Education, a transnational education provider. He has supervised offshore higher education programs delivered in Manila by Australian Catholic University and Brantford University of School of Business and Law. For basic education, he oversees curriculum implementation of various K-12 programs accredited by the Philippines Department of Education, Western Australian Certificate of Education, and the International General Certificate of Secondary Education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I now take the privilege of welcoming Professor Ilyas Sampa. I request all the audiences to please welcome Professor Ilyas Sampa with thunder of claps.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen and honorables, it's really a pleasure to have you to come together at this critical juncture in the history of education. I know that the story of India is a story of my country as well. I come from Zambia, so we share a lot with the Commonwealth. Yeah. So let me just, I think there's a, sorry, there is a, just allow me to share a very short slide. Okay, let's see. This is the challenge we have with technology. When we need it most, it does something else. Okay. Okay, just a minute. Okay, coming up. My apology. It seems to be that our technology is not responding. My slide is not showing. Okay, maybe I'll proceed without showing my slide. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me simply start by sharing that there are different aspects of outcome-based education, and our very able Professor Spedi is going to give us more information about outcome-based education. But I wanted to start by sharing just one dimension about outcome-based education, which deals with alignment, clarity of focus on outcomes. Because outcome-based education is really a buzzword that we find used in many academic environments all over the world today. But are they doing it right? How do we make sure that we can implement it right? And this is one part of the work that we need to do together to help your chapter. So I want to use two frameworks that actually we use in the designing of curriculum or in viewing how we teach, how we educate. So the one aspect is called backloading education or curriculum, can be also program. This is a planning that is based on or focused on inputs. So because we have textbooks, because we have technology, because we have experts, we have people who are talented, so we are going to teach this. Another version of it is front-loading education, curriculum, and program. This is a planning that is based on focusing education on desired outcomes and impacts. So our foundation here is asking ourselves as a people, where do we want to be tomorrow? What kind of future do we want on this planet, in our communities? How do we ensure that we can get there to realize our vision, to realize our hope? This is where outcome-based education come in. So in using those terminologies, outcome-based education is a front-loaded education model. That means it starts with talking about the impact. What kind of future are we working for? What kind of future are we working for? What kind of tomorrow do we want? And then when we talk about outcomes, we are talking about exact abilities and competencies that we want our learners to have as we work with them in classrooms. What kind of graduates do we want to have moving forward? And so we begin, oh yes, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I have it now, it just come. Technology has been kind. Sorry for that. So that's the model of backloading, and that's what I was talking about, front-loading. And front-loading education means we are looking into the future. That's where we start. And then in the present moment, we are actually preoccupied with things of now. But the education that we are trying to do in our schools and universities is actually trying to look at the impacts we are looking for tomorrow. And the outcomes will tell us about possibilities that we see that we can nourish, we can cherish, we can unleash in our learners. In schools, in our classrooms, we are very often preoccupied with inputs, processes, and outputs. When I say inputs, it means giving instructions to our students. And the process of doing that lead them to produce outputs. So when they submit papers, when they submit tasks, when they take tests, these things deals with the present moment. They are inputs, processes, and outputs. They don't represent education, because education, in truth, refer to the outcomes, to the kind of capabilities and competencies that a person developed to function as a competent human being in future, way beyond the classroom, way beyond the university. And so that future focus is where we start. What dreams and aspirations do we have for India, for the world we live in? And that becomes the basis of articulating the intended learning outcomes, the actual things that every single learner has to develop in that particular course or program. What abilities do they need in order to be considered competent in the world? What kind of qualities do they need to have as human beings who are responsible, who take action, who are compassionate, who have everything that we have talked about? That's how we articulate our outcomes. And the next portion is to talk about what kind of experience do they need in order for them to unleash the human potential towards becoming those outcomes that are intended. So what we are doing, whether we are doing it in class, right now because of the pandemic, in Manila we have been running our schools for almost 1 year, 1.5 years in remote setting. But the thing here is, whether it's in remote context or it's distance model, or we are doing it right on campus, we are trying to provide our students with experience. It's experience that teaches, it's not the teachers. So we are providing them experience so that with that experience, they can develop the abilities that are intended. And then we need to take a look at assessment so that we are able to tell how does one get recognized as a competent human being in a particular set of learning or expectations? So assessment becomes something that enables to recognize the abilities that have been achieved. So we have the alignment, which is what I'm talking about now in terms of emphasis. These points need to be aligned. And one of the most important components of outcome-based education is actually the concept of alignment. You align our desired impacts, we align them to the intended learning outcomes, we align that to the learning experiences, and we align that with assessment. So that gives us the sense of giving feedback, giving feed forward. So if we have to send them in the world at the graduation day, are they ready? Are we sure that they are ready to be the right human beings, compassionate and caring and competent? That's the purpose of aligning assessment with learning, with the intended learning outcome and learning experiences. And in summary, just to try to put this in the context of the classroom, because much of my work and support that I give to teachers around the world is really how do we go beyond speeches about outcome-based education to talk about doing it right in your classroom, doing it right in your university, making it happen. So when we align these things, the first column talks about abilities and qualities that we want our students to have. So by the end of this lesson, by the end of this lecture, by the end of this training, the people who have the ability or qualities to practice authentic outcome-based education. Now, that outcome has to be also the content we teach. And that has to also be the learning experience that the student will have. That means when students have to read something, we let them read about practicing authentic outcome-based education. And when we want our students to collaborate with one another so that they can, they can learn at the level of the 21st century, where collaboration and teamwork have become so important. But we have to make sure that their collaboration is about practicing authentic outcome-based education. And when we bring the students together as a class, as a learning community, we ensure that that learning, that coming together, whether they are learning in distance model or they're on campus together, is clearly focused on practicing authentic outcome-based education. And yes, when we come to put this, to synthesize this as teachers, as professors, as lecturers, we make sure that the same message that we are asking our students to work individually, things that we're asking them to collaborate about, and things that we are trying to let the class work or develop, builds up to be about practicing authentic outcome-based education. I'm using this as an example. And when the time comes to assess, we are not actually looking at giving them a test, a quiz, numbers, and that number, and then we do aggregation of numbers. But actually, we can try to take a look at evidences that can tell us that these human beings we have can now practice authentic outcome-based education. So in this sense, what we bring together in the alignment component is to ensure that the kind of assessment we promote is criterion defined. In other words, I want to see them as they should be in the field, in the world, and that's what we have been teaching, that's what we have been providing them as an experience. Therefore, there is no misalignment between what we teach and what we assess, how we teach them and how we assess them, and how we model them and how they model what we're expecting as outcomes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the component of alignment that is so important to outcome-based education. And I think that as we have Dr. Spedi coming in to give us the comprehensive picture of outcome-based education, you really come to appreciate this aspect of alignment, which is so important in this world where there's too much of testing. I've been a member of accreditation system for over 7 years. And I know that we do a lot of numbers there, but this system of outcome-based education transcends accreditation. It transcends that. It makes learning authentic. It makes the experience of being competent, being a human being who has high quality of learning can be reflected and can be seen. So that's where I end my note. Thank you very, very much. And sorry for that technology issue.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a wonderful speech explaining in detail about academic practices, evaluation system, and implementing outcome-based education. Thank you so much for your nice message. May I now request our faculty, Vanita Madam, to please introduce about the next speaker, Professor Fong Mac.
Good morning to one and all. I feel privileged to introduce Professor Fogmack, board member, IN4OBE. He is a professor at the Electrical and Computer Engineering of Gonan University. He is also a consultant to GE Transportation in ERIC since 1994 and helps build real-time simulators for IDE in design and development of control schemes for the GE locomotives. He served 14 years as a chair for the ECE department. He published significant research work on outcomes assessment and offered 10 workshops at BAP ABET Symposium and FIE conferences on outcomes assessment and accreditation. He founded Mac Team software and created Eval Tools, the most comprehensive online assessment tools that covers learning management, outcomes assessment, continuous improvement management, student advising survey, and institutional wide self-study. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. May I now request Professor Fong Mac to please address the gathering. I request all the audience to please welcome Professor Fong Mac with thunder of applause.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. And it's truly my honor and to be a part of the inauguration ceremony for opening the Telangana chapter. And like to congratulate you for putting efforts to get this moving forward. And as I said, I'm from Mark, and outcome-based education has come a long way since I first encountered the concept. Okay, I'm very delighted to see that an international network on OBE has begun to take shape. So let me just briefly relate my experience involvement with OBE and the main observation I had on the common perception of OBE. Okay, as mentioned, I'm a professor at the Electrical Computer Engineering Department, again, since 1990. I served 14 years as chair for the department. So my first encounter for the concept of outcome-based education was when I was mandated to lead the department to meet the APET EC 2000 accreditations. Now, since then, I began my work in outcome assessments. So I have published 10 papers on outcome assessment and offered 10 workshops at APET Symposium, FI conferences, and outcome assessment accreditations. Now, I also successfully lead the department for 3 successful cycle and APET accreditations in the years of 2015, 2005, 2011, 2017. Now, I was also, after that, being appointed as a co-chair for the Gain and Middle State Self-Study Committee, which consists of 105 members and team, and from 2010 to 2013. Now, through the 2 years period of preparation effort in writing a self-study report, I led the team, and we actually ended up with a most successful accreditations for 10 years period for Gannon. Now, with all this involvement in outcome assessments and the experience I have, I founded the marketing software, where at the time, there is no true tool set I can use. And every day when I wake up middle of the night, I'm sweating, and we don't know what to do with outcome assessments. And so I decided to design the software, Eval Tools, and I believe it's the most complex online assessment tool set that cover not only the basic learning management system, but also on the outcome assessment that allow you to do continuous improvement, student advising, even survey, so they don't have to do any people more survey. And also the institutional self-study report that can be automatically generated with Eval Tools. Now with this tool set, I must get the department go through the 3 successful APEC accreditation and the middle state self-study. Along with that, with the tool set, I also assisted other university like the physics and engineering program of Frostburg State University, and the computer science and engineering program of the Islamic University in Medina, and achieved the ABE accreditations. And also, because of that, I also provide extensive consulting services to other universities for the ABE accreditations. Now, besides working with higher ed, I also working with K-12 school also to create another tool is called ADAM tools to manage the student information from admission to graduations. Okay, as also along with that, I designed a special education program just for that, and to help them manage functions like intervention assistance team, multi-factor evaluations, and the individual education program. Okay, just to meet the No Child Left Behind policy demanded by the state. Okay, and so if you may have noticed that my association with the school and institutions is mostly on helping them in implementing tool set and consultation on the outcome assessment processes in meeting the accreditation's requirements and needs. So, but throughout all these years, my involvement with them, I observed that when they say, most of the school, when they say they are really into the outcome-based educations, but in reality, they are really engaging only in the outcome-based evaluations practice so that they can meet the accreditation requirements. So that led to my first observations and then more like questions. Are you focusing on outcome-based educations or the outcome-based evaluations? Okay, when we say outcome-based OB evaluations, the main focus is actually on the evaluation, not on educations. Of course, most of us do not really bother to make the distinction between them. So outcome-based evaluations is necessarily process or a part of the component of outcome-based educations. You can't really do without it. But outcome-based evaluations is not all of the outcome-based education. That's what we must make clear. Okay, outcome-based evaluations share the similar characteristic of outcome-based educations that defines the target outcomes, a process to achieve the result, and closes the loop for improvement. And because of the similarity in characteristic, a lot of people just get confused or never bother to distinguish both of them. So I observed one thing from all this experience. If the school focus mostly on the evaluations, they tend to have the following challenge. For example, it's very difficult or challenging to get faculty buy-in. Okay, a lot of us would think that at the heart of the OBE is students. But in my view, faculty is the main driving force to determine if we can appropriately implement the OBE. So faculty is an educator at heart. So if what they do is collecting paperwork to selecting only ABE accreditation, for example, you will soon find a group of the Army working very hard to produce evidence in time that you need only for accreditation purposes. Then after that, they all go back to the corner to do the work. So does the accreditation process contribute to the actual learning in students or the betterment of the education practice for the programs? So that's the only constant question I ask myself. So my conclusion is that I have seen many examples of complaint from faculty that they hate ABAT. They also hate accreditations. But because of that, so it's so clear if faculty is not into the proper OBE wholeheartedly, it will only naturally lead to the inefficient use of time and resources. Okay, so that is an observation I have. Now the next question is it possible to reach a synergy between the two OBEs? In other words, the OBE educations and outcome-based evaluation. Is it possible to reach a synergy between the two of them? Now there's a book. Unfortunately, now we have a book, okay, Beyond Outcome Accreditation by William Spady and Wazir Hussain. Okay, they explain the great misunderstanding and confusion over these two OBEs. I strongly encourage you to look into that. Okay, the key is to place the focus on educations instead of evaluations. Okay, the mindset, if you do that, then the mindset will begin to shift accordingly to look into ways to teach and nurture successful learners and identify the proper means to assess success of the OBE implementations. Okay, so with that, I conclude my speech. Again, I'd like to congratulate the teams to put all this together and move forward with this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for your nice explanation about outcome-based education and evaluation systems. Thank you so much for enlightening all of us. May I now request Jayalakshmi Garu, faculty, to introduce about the next speaker, senior faculty member, Professor Alan Rao. About Professor Alan Rao.
It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Alan Rao. Professor Alan Rao is a transformational and outstanding learning leader who dedicated 50+ years of service to K-12 higher education and to students, faculty, and communities throughout US. Embodying a deep commitment to lifelong learner-centered self-growth practices, he is an OBE pioneer who embraced a holistic and life-affirming and empowering mindset that every person can learn. As a faculty member, school principal, curriculum director, consultant, and a vice president, he contributed immensely in institutional effectiveness at Kirkland Community College. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I now request Professor Alan Rao, sir, to please address the gathering. I request all the audiences to welcome Professor Alan Rao with thunder of applause. Over to Professor Alan Rao.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be with you. And as I listen deeply to the words of the introductions and the presentations. And I want to speak very directly, just put my hands out to you and reach out as if I'm touching you in the most authentic way for where you are as a group and where you're going to be, because you are choosing something that over my 50 years, you have the key ingredient, and it's called you do this with others in a principle-centered way for the goodness of the world. And so I heard that coursing through my head, through my heart, and into my hands. I'm very hopeful for the group and how it proceeds. You see, when I think of OBE, I think of it as an authentic mindset with deep motivation and methodologies. And I look at its history and I see where it's risen, it's thriving, and when it's diving, when it crashes. And when it crashes, it's usually a signal, as Fong was saying, is the emphasis becomes on the micro work of paperwork and the like, when in fact it doesn't have to be that way. And so when you approach this journey here, and you think about what are those outcomes of significance that glue everyone, all employees, the students and the like together, you come to a deeper, richer place within yourself. And that's where things expand into abundance and less about constraints. And so specifically, when I think about OBE, I think about leadership. And I think about leadership in deep knowing and deep change. And I think about, and I feel as they feel, When their authentic soul starts getting involved with this, the world changes. And I've witnessed it over and over, particularly through leaders who are developing more leaders. And when they craft very carefully what sometimes is called exit outcomes, sometimes it's programmed, but most of the time it's institutional. When they craft a profile or a portrait of a graduate, when they detail exactly what that human being will be and become, and they craft it, and they craft it in ways that are just elegant. First of all, one of them I see a lot is all of our graduates will have a learner mindset, and they will be able to directly express their desire to learn, their desire to unlearn, and their desire to relearn from diverse perspectives. And they'll ask themselves, do I fully understand the concept of failure and its necessity for me to grow? When you see those things started getting crafted with other outcomes of significance in that portrait, you start to see people including adaptability and how it adapts to the world as we're coming to understand it right now. And so what happens is that future focus, as Ilyas was saying, that future focus of those outcomes can move to the present and be right in front of you each and every day, regardless of your responsibility with the institution and your relationships within a community. And so over the work that I have done, I have a particular interest in terms of leadership development. It's states of development in the presence-based leadership, but also the stages and states of it and how it evolves and how you can bring self-coaching and coaching and mentoring to an organization where people are experiencing one another in new ways, fresh ways that have been a part of them all the way along. And it's so in that cultural shift, with this technical background, you end up with something that is essential at the core of all this work, and that's the word trust. And just for time purposes, I'll just kind of wrap it this way and just say that when I think about trust, I think about creating those authentic human-centered experiences as part of the work. And if you're living it, it's real easy to tell the story to anybody, any day. And the workload goes down on the accreditation, and the loving kindness that connects with people one by one. This is a human-centered enterprise. And so when you get right down to it, trust, well, it's targets. It's clear targets with outcomes of significance, as I mentioned. The R stands for it's reciprocal. For everything you give away in goodness, it comes back to you in unknowing ways. You become closely intimate with the use of processes and practices that add value, measurable value, to the growth of yourself, others, and the institution and the community. And you learn the S of sharing, what it means to give your best self away each and every day. And then, thank God, Fong, you have the tools to do the job. You have that technology. You have all the pieces to when accreditation shows up. You've got a warehouse of knowledge transfer. You've got some vignettes of actual living, breathing stories that are resident within the culture of your people. And people thrive. The old way of doing school was grade them, select them and sort them and give them A's and B's and C's and so forth. And we mastered that one. In fact, we ended up with a lot of grade addicted credit chasers who really haven't learned what learning is all about. Well, I find my fascination in education, and Bill knows this, is I just say, just for a moment, play with me and just go this way. Take the A out of education and put it on top. And let's call that awareness, conscious awareness of this new way of being. And now let's look at the word that's left over. Oh, eduction. We educe, we draw out the best in one another when we have a balanced model to where we can achieve the regulations, but we can live in a world of awe and abundance and the like. So I just wish everything the best to where this goes and where it unfolds. One of the best things that will happen, if you can recall in your life, there's those moments that they call annunciation moments, where something flashes within you and you go, I saw myself differently. And you remember that moment, and it defines and shapes you into the future you're headed down. So it is indeed a pleasure to feel the spirit in the room, the honor and respect that is generated right within the space that we share. And it's a pleasure to join you this evening. Well, in the morning when it's actually past midnight here. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Alan Rosser, for your outstanding enlightenment, starting from history, vision of OBE, true participation, true transformation, grab the mindset, unlearn, de-learn, and coaching, mentoring. All these are really educating and enlightening to all of us, sir. So kind of you. Thank you so much for your time, for gracing and enlightening all of us. Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Vanitha Garu to please introduce about our next speaker, V. Venkatramana Garu, who is the Vice Chairman, Honorable Vice Chairman of Telangana State Council for Higher Education. Vanitha Garu.
I feel privileged to introduce Professor V. Venkatramana, Vice Chairman, Telangana State Council of Higher Education, Government of Telangana, and DST TBI Coordinator, University of Hyderabad. V. Venkatramana has been appointed as the Vice Chairman of the Telangana State Council of Higher Education. He holds a MBA and doctoral degree in management and received advanced training at IIIEE, Sweden, and ICT Institute, University of Texas, prior to his present assignment. He was a senior-most professor at School of Management Studies, University of Hyderabad, where he has also served as Dean for 7.5 years and has over 13 years of experience across different sectors, spanning academics, industry, bachelor level positions at SBH for 4 years and Indian Infrastructure Finance Company for 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now request Professor V. Venkatramana Garu to please address the gathering. I request all the audience to please welcome Professor V. Venkatramana Garu with thunder of applause. Over to Venkatramana, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very nice introduction, which actually places a lot of responsibility on me. First of all, congratulations to the organizers of this network and inauguration of the first of its kind on outcome-based education. I'm really happy and delighted that Lord's Institute of Engineering and Technology, which is a very premier institution in the state of Telangana, has taken a lead to invite such very eminent professors and practitioners to share their views to the academic community. I'm indeed delighted to hear the views of these speakers who have done extremely well in their respective areas of specialization. When I am speaking here, I thought I will share with you and I'll discuss some of the initiatives which the state of Telangana has been doing in the field of technical education, management education, and general education. When the state of Telangana was formed in 2014, we realized that education is the key enabler and the key result area for any state to grow. Having seen this, our Honorable Chief Minister directed all of us to ensure that the technical education which is being imparted in Telangana or in our engineering colleges is relevant, is contemporary, and also it serves the needs of the society. I must add here that not only we produce graduates who are merely employable, but we also are looking at an outcome-based learning in the way of trying to make them socially relevant and better citizens and better employees to corporations. We realized that the technical education, particularly engineering education, was bereft of these things. And what was being done traditionally is provide education so that they can earn a living. But we want to develop into a multidisciplinary and holistic way of providing education and learning experiences. We started our journey by looking and working backwards from where the student exits the university. We started realizing that there are gaps in our teaching learning processes. We also realized that the students are not exposed to the day-to-day problems or real life or hands-on experience. So we are in the process of working out our strategies in 3 areas. One, completely revamp the curriculum, see that the student gets the latest in these developments. We have announced 2020 as the year of AI. Our Honorable Minister for IT also has been showing, Mr. K.T. Ramarao, has been showing that not only we should become good institutions which provide good teaching learning, but also provide internships. We are looking at a German model too, where practice school concept we are looking at. The second point we are looking at is revamping the curriculum. And the last one is Telangana is the startup destination for Asia Pacific. Today in Telangana, we are encouraging students to take up small-time projects, which can eventually become the Uber and all these kind of startup activities can be given. We want to set up incubators, and we are encouraging colleges to set up incubators, and we will also provide support to these colleges by way of hand-holding. And you must be aware that we have a T-Hub, a J-Hub under JNTU, a hub startup for women, V-Hub. So I am seeing that in the next 2-3 years, Telangana will emerge as the chosen destination for technical and other education. And I welcome you all to visit us and share your views. Lastly, I want to add that mere education without a clear direction and mere education without a policy will not serve any country. If we have to be globally competitive, we have to prepare students with a global mindset and a global thinking. So we would like to invite, under the National Education Policy, we are now free to invite foreign institutions, distinguished professors like you as scholars in residence, and we would be very glad to host all of you in Hyderabad at some point in time. Wishing this network and the program a grand success. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Professor V. Venkatramana sir, for your nice words, explaining about Government of Telangana initiatives, policies, and revampation of curriculum, as well as project introduction to the students, J-Hub, and then meeting the global competition towards, with the help of by way of implementing national educational policy. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your valuable time and addressing all of us, motivating all of us. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. May I now request Neelima, our faculty member Neelima Garu, to introduce about our next speaker, Professor Pv Raja Rao Garu, who is serving as the director of Telangana State Forest Academy, which is also considered as a small university in Telangana. Over to Neelima. Thank you.
Good morning, one and all. Now I feel privileged to introduce Sri Pv Raja Rao IFS. Sir Pv Raja Rao IFS entered into AP Forest Service on 1/1/1984. He worked as District Forest Officer at Tirupati, Visakhapatnam, Kurnool, and Restoration Cell at Karimnagar. He worked as Chief Conservative of Forests in Warangal and Kottagudem circles. From February 2021, working as Director, Telangana State Forest Academy, Dolapalli, and Secretary, Center for Forest and Natural Resource Management, Circle. Thank you.
May I now request Sri Pv Raja Rao IFS Garu, the Director of Telangana State Forest Academy, to please address the gathering. I request all the audiences to please welcome Pv Raja Rao Garu with thunder of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all, for giving me a thunderous welcome. And I also thank Professor Altaf for bringing me into this sort of gathering where I feel a fish out of water, because I am a core forest officer for the last 35 years. And during the last 1.5 years, I have been in charge of training the forest staff of this department. This department is basically oriented towards protection of environment, and particularly with the ultimate goal of reducing carbon emission and the global change, mitigating the climate change effects. In this direction, we have been training. We have a cadre of 4-5 officers, right from the base, that is called forest beat officers, then forest section officers, then range officers, then All India Service Forest officers. All are being trained. Unless and until training is done to these cadre officers, they are not put into the field. Now, I link this outcome-based education to the dialogue, as one of the eminent professors have stated, that dialogue, education, transformation, and emerging technologies all have to be combined to make a leader. And leader has to start mentoring the followers. Now, with this small idea, I would like to associate myself with Professor Altaf Hussain and International Network for Outcome-Based Education, because now for us, till today, we have been banking upon the traditional way of training, probably with little emphasis on the outcome. Now the priorities have changed, and a lot of emphasis is being laid on the environmental protection. Therefore, this outcome-based education, public training should be imparted, will be imparted by us. And I will take this opportunity to inculcate this part of outcome-based education in our academy also. and probably after this experiment at this small level, and if this is highly successful, I will try to spread across the entire country, because we have about 30 to 40 training institutes all over the country, and the premier training institute is at Dehradun, where Indian Forest Service officers are trained. So this is a very good opportunity for me to understand and learn more about OBE, and also to inculcate that in our training curriculum program. Therefore, I thank all the organizers and all the luminaries who have spoken before me. Really, they have enlightened me, because I am totally novice in this outcome-based education, because I have completed my education in 1984. After that, I have been a core forest officer, and now exposing me to this international network for outcome-based education is really an opportunity for me to grab and implement in our department, not only in our department in Telangana, but also in the entire country, and also in the Dehradun. Thanking you all the organizers for giving, Lord's Institute organization for giving me this opportunity, and exposing me to a new set of experiment, because even this OBE concept is, as one of the speaker has told that OBE concept has evolved about in 2000, but I am late by 21 years. Still, I don't feel that I am late. I have not missed anything. I feel that I have not mixed anything, and I'm going to definitely catch up and try to unlock what a OBE is, and try to put up in our training programs. Thanking you once again for all the organizers, and I especially thank Mr. Dr. Altaf Hussain for having specifically requesting me, because I was totally a novice in this, but he pestered me that I should be a part of this virtual meeting, so that we can be knowing many things. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you all the organizers. Thank you.
So much, sir. Now I take the proud privilege of welcoming the guest of honor for today's event, Sri Vinod Kumar Garu, Honorable Vice Chairman of Telangana State Planning Commission, Government of Telangana. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us, accepting us. May I now request Professor Vinod Kumar Garu to please address the gathering. Sri Vinod Kumar Garu to please address the gathering. Hello. 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 May I request Honorable Guest of Honor?
You will kindly go to the next speaker, maybe, because he'll take some time, I think.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, we have next speaker, Sri Navin Mittal IAS Garu, but Sari is also totally occupied with some exigency. He has just conveyed a message that probably he would join after a few minutes. So now may I now request Wajid Hussain sir to please share some experiences of affiliates as well as chapters. Meanwhile, we hope that Vinod Kumar sir as well as Navin Mittal sir will be freed. May I request Wajid Hussain sir to please share about activities or the past experiences or enlighten us towards how best we can further proceed. Sorry for the inconvenience, but I thought maybe your few words will motivate further.
We have more than a few words, but we were trying to accommodate everybody here. And we have an award ceremony going on, more than the Grammys and Oscars, and we have all these star performers. So I'll add a few more points here, but I think we have to go on further with even Dr. Spaddy's presentation, and I hope we also can resolve some of these communication issues, because I have a lot of people contacting me and asking me. There's been some glitches with the network. So talking about the affiliations of the International Network for Outcome-Based Education, we have two modalities. Specifically talking about the country of India, our approach is to have a chapter per state. As Professor Anil, the chairman, honorable chairman of the AICTE, was suggesting that we could have more initiatives like these in different states. So we are encouraging that, and we're asking all the participants to convey and disseminate this idea that we're looking forward to spreading the message of authentic OBE, the right way of implementing OBE to realize the full potentials of real OBE. And that's why if you go to our website, you have it saying real OBE, the power and promise of real OBE. So this, what I was talking about when I started this, is it's become a jargon and slogan for many organizations and institutions. But in reality, do we realize the essence and spirit of outcome-based education? Is it really serving its purpose? Where are the loopholes? I'm interacting with ministries in several countries. So we have problems. There are a bunch of papers. There's an existential gap between what the skills should be, what the knowledge should be, and what education is providing. And so we have national qualification systems trying to match all that up. And there are significant areas of work to do. So that's where IN4OBE and its experts and consultants come into the picture. So whether it's government, whether it's K-12, higher education, medical, law, engineering, technical education, whatever those specializations are, there are specific areas of work to do. So what we can offer is consultancy. We can offer regional, international events, awareness. We can provide training, whether it's faculty, one-on-one training, or even group training. All of these are open for different jurisdictions to take advantage of. So that's where the chapters can play a significant role. Now, if you look into a certain jurisdiction, not only chapters, but we have affiliates that work with chapters. And there's a subtle and distinct difference in both of these. And so we would encourage you to contact the the Lord's Institute of Education Technology. United is in Bangladesh, and we have some other collaborations coming up in other countries. So the Lord's Institute of Education, Engineering Technology in Telangana, to get further information how you could become affiliates of the IN4OBE. I had some institutions contact me. They had events coming up, international events. They want outcome-based education experts, consultants to provide a certain kind of instruction and delivery of some topics in the events. So there are many different items that are open and on the table. I would like to, I think, okay. I would like to stop you and give floor to the chairman of Planning Commission. Thank you.
Sorry. Sir, Altaf sir, sorry to interrupt. Altaf sir, please. Sir is waiting.
Yeah. So good morning to one and all.
Sir.
Yeah, good morning to one and all. And
thank you so much, sir, for your presence, and may I request you to kindly address all our participants. We are really eagerly looking forward to hear you, sir. Before that, may I request our faculty member to brief about Honorable Vinod Kumar, sir.
yeah.
I would like
Sir,
to
sir,
take this
sorry, sir.
opportunity to introduce.
Sir, would you like to address?
Would you like to thank him or
Altafji, I think we'll go with the speaker, Vinod Kumar Garu, because
Hello, sorry. Yes. Over to Vinod Kumar, sir.
Yeah. I'm
Sir.
sorry. I'm in a very urgent meeting, unable to address you properly. But I wish the conference a great success. Thank you, one and all. I'm in an urgent.
Sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. May I now request Sri Vinod Kumar sir has some essential meeting and thereby he could not spend much time. But thank you so much, sir, for your blessings, for your wishes. Next speaker, Naveen Mittal IAS sir, also is little occupied with some government delegates. May I now request Wajid Hussain sir to please introduce about William Spaddy sir, the next speaker, and the chief guest of today's occasion.
Dr. William Spaddy always told me not to introduce him because he's already introduced since the past several decades. So, very briefly, Dr. William Spaddy has been a major change agent internationally. And after John Carroll and Benjamin Bloom, he spearheaded outcome-based education systems, model systemic change in education since the last 5 decades. And North America has totally transformed its process of delivering education thanks to the efforts of Dr. William Spaddy. It's not just North America, but now we have outcome-based educational models mandated in more than 100 countries of the world that we know of. And there are many that we don't even know of, but they are implementing outcome-based educational models. So Dr. William Spaddy, as far as I know, is cited tens and thousands of times more than any academic I have seen, by governmental documents, by popular papers in top research journals. Accreditation is one of the top most areas that cite Dr. William Spaddy. So I don't want to spend more time on that, otherwise it will be another speech, and I give it forward to the father of outcome-based education, widely known as the father of outcome-based education, coined the word OBE to give us the details of what outcome-based education is actually for and is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we are all really eagerly awaiting for the speech by the founder of outcome-based education, who is also considered as the father of outcome-based education. I request Professor William G. Spaddy Garu to please address the gathering. I request all the participants to please welcome Professor William Spaddy with thunder of claps.
Hello, can you hear me? There we go. I thank you profoundly for all of the kind words that you've expressed toward my colleagues and the contributions and expertise that they provide to this work. And I thank you as an institution and as a country for inviting us to share our work in what has been our life passions with you. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation, a very short one, but haven't figured out how to get it for you to see it. So I am going to show it to myself and use it as a guide for this presentation. It balances two things. Everyone wants to know what are the details of OBE and how to do OBE. And what this presentation is about is something I'm calling OB and E's definitive fundamentals. That is, what are the fundamentals of O that I think in many cases are misunderstood? What does the B mean in the middle of OBE? And I'm going to list a whole series of E's that influence exactly the depth and quality of what you will do. I believe that this concept is universal. I'm writing a paper about it, yet another paper right now, in which I'm saying that we have outcome-based examples all over our societies. I've lived it in many of these circumstances. There's scuba training, there is pilot training, there is musical training and performance. The list goes on and on of things that are outside of education that are outcome-based. And the reason for this is simply that outcome-based education, OBE, means basing education on outcomes. It does not mean basing outcomes on the education we already have. So for me, with the O taking precedence, saying this is what we really need to focus on, it is making O the fundamental purpose of OBE, the fundamental purpose, okay? Everything else follows from that. Well, if OBE means basing education on outcomes, and it does not mean basing outcomes on education, then most of what I see and encounter in the world, whether it's at universities or in primary schools or in secondary schools, etc., I call it CBO. And I have a list this long of things that are CBO, starting with curriculum-based outcomes and calendar-based opportunities. Those are not OBE, okay? They are what our systems are, quote, allegedly modern educational systems that were really built on a paradigm from the 19th century and before, okay? All those systems, okay, are still in place. They're all doing what systems do. Now, the reason that I think there is an OBE at all, okay, is because when I was introduced to the work of Benjamin Bloom, who developed this instructional model called mastery learning, when I was introduced to that work, before they even introduced mastery learning, okay, I said, this will never work. Now, they had already done pilot tests and pilot studies and everything else, experimenting with the different features of this instructional model. They had tremendous results. And here comes Spady, and he says, this will never work. Okay, well, this will never work because they made the assumption, and we tried to get it to work and it didn't, okay, as successfully as we wanted. But they made the assumption that teachers sort of control everything. This was a classroom model. So teachers could decide what the outcomes were, or i.e. the instructional objectives were, and teachers could control time and testing and assessment and grading and all this kind of stuff, and away we go. Everybody is going to do what they wanted done because the teachers can do it. Well, the teachers happen to live in a system that, excuse me, is anti-outcome based. And therefore, the system won, and the system will continue to win. And I entered the picture as a sociologist, as someone who's focused on organizations and systems and how they function. And I said, well, it's like you taking a big round peg and trying to push it into a tiny square hole. It's not going to work. Except I was so impressed by what their findings were, I said, well, okay, you work on helping the teachers and I'll change the system. Well, that's been a 50-year effort that hasn't succeeded either. The systems are still the same, etc. Now, a little more on that. Okay, OBE, I'm asked this all the time. Well, is it a philosophy or is it a model or is it a strategy? What is it? I mean, where does it fit in these categories? Well, it's all of these things. It is a philosophy, and the philosophy is all learners can succeed. Okay, all learners can succeed, but not on the same day in the same way. They all have the potential to succeed if the system would allow that. And I said, well, I guess my job is to see if I can get systems to allow that. We call it the conditions of success, okay? The conditions of success are all the rules and the ground rules and the structures and everything we set up so that students either learn what we want them to learn or they don't, and we have to live with the consequences. So OBE from the very beginning has been about expanding the conditions of success so that all learners learn because they can. Now, the John Carroll work that Wajid has referenced a couple of times came from a paper that he wrote way back in 1963. It was called A Model of School Learning. And the paper, basically, among the many things that he was addressing in the paper, he said we have the wrong concept of aptitude. We think aptitude is a person's ability to learn, but aptitude is actually the rate of their learning, how quickly they learn, not their ability to learn. And it was that distinction that Bloom picked up and turned into this instructional model that tried to accommodate differences in the rates of student learning, which was not necessarily their ability to learn what needed to be learned. So this has been the philosophy of OBE, and therefore the model and the system and the strategy and the paradigm of OBE are all embedded there together, all integrated. It's about successful learning. So we developed a paradigm statement, and the paradigm statement is what and whether students learn successfully is more important than when and how they learn it. Okay, it's the what and the whether that count. Okay, now that doesn't mean when and how don't matter. Okay, but it's what and whether that take precedence. They're the priority. Well, if they're the priority, then we'd better be very careful about how we define what they are. I have been asked countless times and in probably every presentation about OBE I have given for the last million years, okay, I have said outcome-based education, and here is 4 words and 4 words. OBE, the heart of OBE, the soul of OBE, is the consistent, systematic, creative, and simultaneous application of 4 principles. Okay? OBE is a principled way of educating. And the 4 principles are called, number 1, clarity of focus on outcomes of significance. And of significance means they really matter and they really have to last. It means they have to get out the door and be applied in the outer world. Okay? Clarity of focus in everything you do. So Ilyas was talking about alignment. Well, it's clarity of focus on the curriculum, clarity of focus on the outcome, clarity of focus in terms of assessment, clarity of focus in terms of teaching process. Everything revolves around that first key principle. The second principle is called expanded opportunity. Benjamin Bloom assumed that time was a flexible, alterable variable. Well, it is not, okay? It is absolutely fixed and time-based and structured in education, okay? Time and opportunity are related. When you run out of time, the students run out of opportunity, okay? The day it ends is the day they get graded, and there is no more opportunity to change that. At least that was in the era when in which we operated way back 50 years ago. Third principle is called high expectations for all to succeed. Okay? Students can learn more and do better than we thought. And that's what mastery learning was proving in the trials and in many of the applications that people used. And the fourth is called design down, which I call build back, okay? But design down the curriculum, design it back from your ultimate outcomes, okay? Well, you better have some ultimate outcomes. I'll call them exit outcomes. That's the label we gave them a long time ago. When students walk out the door and there's a sign above the door that says exit, okay, when they leave your institution, whatever it is, okay, what is it that you want them to be able to know, do, and be? Okay, those 3 things. Okay, and don't forget the be and don't forget the do, because most of what we focus on is the know. In fact, it's totally overbalanced. So OBE is the consistent, okay, simultaneous, creative, and systematic application of those 4 principles. Now, what about based? I'm dealing with based. I'm dealing with the B before I deal with the O, okay? What do we mean by based? Well, I'll tell you from the very beginning, way back in the early days, we came up with a definition of based. And it was a construct, because it was essentially the integration of 5 things. Based meant defined by, focused on, aligned with, designed around, and organized around. Okay? Which means education is going to be defined by, focused on, aligned with, designed around, and organized around outcomes. That isn't happening. Education is organized around curriculum, and the calendar, and credits. Okay, those 3 C's for sure. So if you want to be outcome-based, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Please know that. So if that's true, okay, if based means those things, then education, and I'm putting on my sociologist hat now, okay, education is a closed system. And that closed system, that is, it's all unique to the way education does education and all the vocabulary and things. I mean, the rest of the world doesn't have semesters and the rest of the world doesn't have credit hours and all these very special things that we've created, okay? That closed system is time-based, curriculum-based, requirements-based, accreditation-based, and inertia-based. Okay? That's what constitutes a closed system. And what we do in the name of outcome-based education is sort of sprinkle outcomes over the top of that and say, okay, well, we're outcome-based. No, we're not. We don't either have real outcomes in most cases, and it's not based that way. So here we go. In 1986, after we were doing nothing but mastery learning from 1968 till 1986, 18 years, all right, we finally figured out what an outcome was. And that happened because of a crisis. Okay? We said an outcome is a culminating demonstration of learning. Okay? It's culminating. It happens at or after the end, and it's a demonstration, which means the learners have to do something that is visible and observable and tangible. They have to do some action. That's first 2 implications. Outcomes are defined by words, not numbers. And unfortunately, we were caught in a trap with mastery learning, where the number 80, if everybody got their grade of 80 or better, then that was called mastery. And so the teachers were just trying to get everybody, no matter what it was, they were putting numbers on everything the kids did and averaging up and, oh my gosh, oh, we're trying to get them to 80. Well, where's the learning? What's the learning? Nobody knew what the outcomes were, but everybody was chasing the numbers. So I have bad news. Numbers aren't learning. Numbers aren't performance. Numbers are simply labels we put on those things. I've been working in the Philippines. I worked there for 3 years, okay, nonstop. And I would do, I had some of my colleagues saying, oh God, please do your numbers game thing with them and teach them about this. And so I would do this workshop that I called, getting rid of the numbers game. And in there, I showed that no matter what test you give, okay, it is a test of non-essential learning. All of them, non-essential learning. And we think that all of our tests are essential learning. So maybe sometime I can do that one for you. Outcomes are multidimensional. They're 3-dimensional. Okay, dimension 1, it's called cognition. It's what your brain does, but everything in your brain stays in your brain until you do something. Okay, maybe it's speak it, maybe it's write it, maybe it's build it, maybe it's design it. Okay, maybe it's develop it, maybe it's assess it or validate it. But whatever it is, the doing means action. It means performance. That is dimension 2? Well, I invented a clever little saying way back when that said, every time you do something, you do it somewhere. And the somewheres can vary enormously. That is, the somewheres are the performance context, the situation in which you do the performing. And in an enormous number of our programs, the performance context is either the classroom or the lecture hall, or sometimes there's a lab, okay? But the performance context is limited inside of the institution, but we want that basically turns out to be mainly one-dimensional learning. We were just hoping and praying that that gets out the door and can get applied out there in the real world. So we are all for three-dimensional learning, okay? Cognition, competence, and context. And context. Now, the word significance, I'll come back to that. We finally had to learn. Well, people were trying to do these culminating outcomes, et cetera, in the curriculum and in their courses and everything else. But in fact, things weren't getting out the door because most of what was happening, the students had forgotten by the time they graduated. If you learned something 3 years ago and then you were asked to be a great performer on it, but you'd never done it until 3 years ago, you couldn't anymore. So we realized all of this has to be integrated and continue to be reinforced and applied because it really matters after they're gone. And that's when we became future focused and actually built our design around outcomes and everything else off of what is it that the future is going to be holding for students rather than what's the curriculum we're teaching them now. We have a colleague who was going to be part of this team tonight. Okay, it's tonight for me. He's in the hospital with COVID. Brilliant professor, brilliant high school principal when I first met him. And he got his high school to change dramatically by asking his teachers, okay? They didn't want to do OBE, okay? They wanted to just keep doing their courses. He went around to every classroom, he observed, and he asked one question. What will your students really be able to do with this 5 years from now? And most of them was like, oh my God, because the end of their life was supposed to be the final exam at the end of this year. And then once you got that, well, that was credit and you were done. 5 years from now, he said, what are they going to be able to do with this? And everything changed. Now, the complex one here, okay, and this is a whole major workshop on its own, okay, is that outcomes take different forms, i.e., they take the form of discrete skills. Remember, an outcome is a demonstration. Discrete skills, okay, well, that's as micro as you can get, okay, structured tasks, etc., higher order competencies, complex unstructured tasks, but we finally got up to a level of building this sort of hierarchy of something we called complex functional roles. That is, the roles people play in everything they do in their lives, which is just one step short of life role, okay? Because these performance roles are the things you do inside of your life roles. So believe me, we're dealing from classroom discrete skills all the way out to the complex configurations of life roles that people perform. So the O word takes many forms, and I'm going to just share one framework with you very quickly, okay? In 1991, by accident, we created a framework when I was working with a school district in Colorado. And what we ended up with is something called performance roles. And they said, okay, we want, when we were finished, they said, it doesn't matter what the students' grades are, or the marks, or their class rank, or if they're black or white, or if it's a boy or a girl, or anything else. We want all of our students to be, when they walk out of here, self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, community contributors, and quality producers. Those 5 things, okay? Self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, community contributors, and quality producers. And then we laid out, so what does that really mean? So this is the heart of the work we're now calling life performance outcomes. And all of us are working toward that now, okay? Life performance outcomes. So the B is based, okay? The O is outcomes that are culminating demonstrations that are, we could get into lots and lots of details with lots of examples, okay? But here's the E. Fong said, well, there's 2 E's. There's education, that's a big decision you make, or there's evaluation. An outcome-based evaluation, okay, is about outcome-based education. Well, that prompted me to create a little framework here that I'm going to share with you as my closing, okay? So what is IN4OBE? What is our major goal? Well, I'll say maybe it's elevation, that is, of the whole society, okay, because it could surely use some work. Empowerment of learners, deep empowerment, okay, enlightenment in terms of opening up greater awareness both internally and externally. Yes, evaluation is one. I now am calling everything we're doing in OBE outcome-based evolution because it keeps changing and changing and improving and evolving. Or are you going to be happy with outcome-based examinations, which are mainly pencil, paper, one-dimensional with numbers? Or is the goal excellence, outcome-based excellence? I think we all want that. But depending on your E, it is going to shape the paradigm with which you look at outcomes. So there's a bit of a back and forth between the two, okay? Outcomes compel you to say, which paradigm are we really pursuing? Conclusion. OBE means change. It means deep change. My colleague Charles Schwann and I developed a framework and a whole process we called strategic design that was a future-focused way of approaching OBE and of developing outcomes. In the process of that, we ended up writing 2 books about leadership and change. So I just want to share the heart of this because I think some of this ties in very directly to what Fong was saying and very directly to what Al was saying, okay? What are the roles? What are the roles of what we were calling in our work a total leader? That is an OBE leader who has to make deep change in their organization and it has to stick, okay? The first thing, defining purpose. Purpose is fundamental. What business are we in here? Okay. And I'll go back to the E's. All right. Are we in the enlightenment business, the empowerment business, the examination business? I mean, what is that purpose? Secondly, framing a vision. What will we be doing and how will we be functioning when we're at our very best in pursuing and accomplishing our purpose? The third, and I know this is a big issue for both Al and Fong, is developing ownership on the part of the staff and the faculty in this is ours, we want to participate in it because things are going to be better here and we're being given a role in shaping this. The fourth major role is building capacity, because there is certainly a lot of new information, knowledge, skills, concepts, processes, etc., that one learns and does differently when you do OBE. And the final one is ensuring support. That is, do we know we will really be backed up with resources and training and help? And will they change some of these time-based things in education so that we can actually have more flexibility and not be driven by the calendar? So those five, purpose, vision, ownership, capacity, and support, we call the pillars of change. And the leadership work that we do works very, very strongly toward achieving that. So thank you. I am deeply honored that you allowed me the time to share, and I know my colleagues will have a lot to say about all of what I've just said now. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for really explaining in detail about OBE, CBO, training paradigms, training and learning paradigms, fundamental purposes, as well as successful learning principles of OBE, and totally concluding as the overall change in the system, in the administration, in the curriculum. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening all of us. And with this center, with this chapter of Telangana, will be all the institutions and try to implement OBE. May I now request once again Professor V.M. Spady Garu to please announce announce officially the launch of Telangana chapter in India. Hello. May I now request
Can you hear
Professor
me?
William Spady, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, good. All right. Thank you. Yes, I am honored, and I speak for all of my colleagues, in formally opening the chapter at Lord's Institute of Engineering and Technology. We are absolutely delighted to have you as colleagues, and I am personally absolutely delighted at the responses and the presentations I've heard from your colleagues. This is going to be monumentally successful. Thank you.
For really honoring us with your enlightenment, and thank you for announcing officially as the first chapter in India, especially in Telangana, for the International Network for Outcome-Based Education. Thank you so much, sir. We'll see to it that we'll meet all your expectations. We assure you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I now
Thank you.
request Jayalakshmi to please introduce about our next speaker, the vibrant personality, vibrant professor of Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Sri G.K. Vishwanath Garu. Thank you. May I take 1 minute's time to really define, actually in my introduction, in my introducing people, I am using Garu. Garu is a respectable word being used here in India. So I just want to define. It's like sir. Garu is like sir or higher level of sir. Thank you so much.
It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor G.K. Vishwanath. Professor G.K. Vishwanath is a professor of Civil Engineering and Director of UGC HRDC, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Hyderabad. He has also served as Director of Evaluation and is the consultant of Government of India, Telangana. He is actively involved and contributed in various activities, which includes recruitment of Sub-Inspector of Telangana, and he is the vibrant and dynamic professor in the university. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now request Professor G.K. Vishwanath Garu to address the gathering as well as moderate the next session, which is question answer session or panel discussion. May I now request G.K. Vishwanath, sir. Over to G.K. Vishwanath. I request all the audiences to please welcome Professor G.K. Vishwanath with thunder of applause.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Am I audible? Will you please confirm? Yeah, somebody may confirm whether I am audible.
Audible, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good morning, the dignitaries, the chief guest of today's launching session, Professor William G. Spady, and the chairman of LRDS Institute of Engineering and Technology, Sri C.A. Basha Mohiddin sir, and all other dignitaries, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe and Professor Manjur Hussain, Professor Venkatramana Garu, Professor Lakshmi Narayan Garu, and all other dignitaries who have been present for this today's launching session. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the management, the principal, the director, Altaf Hussain, and the staff of LRDS Institute of Technology, and the students of LRDS Institute of Engineering and Technology, and the entire teaching fraternity and student fraternity of the Telangana state for the launch of this great event, that the Telangana chapter on International Network for Outcome-Based Education. A special congratulations and special thanks to the management of LRDS Institute for taking up all the pains to see that this chapter is launched in the state of Telangana. So they have identified the need of this OBE, the outcome-based education, I suppose. And from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University side, maybe being the capacity of various administrative positions, though I'm a professor of civil engineering, we have been trying to see that the teachers who are in the fold of OBE, who are in the fold of, say, technical education, needs to be trained on this outcome-based education. We try to see that the teachers are trained. Today, really, I'm very happy to listen to the speech of Professor William Spady, because we have been using his name, his principles, everything, and he has given so nicely about OBE, the expansion, the requirements, etc. Particularly for the Indian context, probably maybe for the world context, this OBE is very well required, and it has been very well recognized and being implemented at different stages. Coming to the Indian higher education system, the requirement is a little high, because we have been facing several challenges, starting from providing access to the higher education, providing access to the technical education, to see that the student is industry ready. So we have been talking about industry 4.0, education 4.0, and several things. So in that context, maybe OBE is very, very important. And as he rightly pointed out, Professor William Spalding, saying that we have been now surrounded by 3 C's, like credits, curriculum, and calendar. I do agree. We have been taking up and making the students and moving the students towards showing everything in the form of a calendar and providing a fixed curriculum and making them to study, conducting the examination, finally making them to move towards achieving the credits and awarding the degree. This may be required in a very conventional method of education. It is true. But as he rightly pointed out, we should not be surrounded only by this OBE, something very vast, where we try to look at what the student is coming out. That is very important. In a very conventional education system, probably everything has gone in a teacher-centric way. In a teacher-centric way, where teacher comes to the class and he tries to teach what all he knows or what all designed in the curriculum. He will try to teach in the classroom, and then the students are expected to look at the backboard, say check and technology, where the student is expected to note down or make a note of the things, and he has to go to the library, submit his assignments and go for examination, get some credits, and finally, yes, he achieves the degree. This may be a very conventional mode of education which has been there and which has been being practiced. But we don't say that that should not be there, but at the same time, if the college is to be accredited, the National Board of Accreditation from India also is trying to put in several efforts. Prior to the Washington Accord also, when NBA visits the institution, probably the main aim and goal of accrediting the institution or a department or a course was slightly different, in the sense that what facilities are there in the college, say infrastructure facilities, library facilities, faculty, qualifications of the faculty, and what is the student intake and what are the laboratories available. So these are all constituting a major portion of evaluating a system, maybe a department, maybe a course, maybe an institution, and then accordingly the accreditations used to be given. But later, no, with this advent of OBE, people started thinking, if all these facilities are available in the college, why the student coming out should not possess the knowledge, should not possess a lifelong learning skill, should not design anything on his own. So this is the point of question. When the student is coming out, maybe with a college, we are having good infrastructure, good faculty, good library facilities, and then good laboratory facilities, everything is there. If the student is coming out, naturally he should be good. But there is a missing link in between these two. The missing link is that when we have been following, as he rightly pointed out, when we have been following a fixed credit system, curriculum system, and a calendar, probably we have been trying to mold the student towards an evaluation pattern rather than a learning pattern. So in this evaluation pattern, student is learning, appearing for the examination, getting the credits and degree, and moving out. Then whether he is becoming industry ready or not is another big question. So some countries say that no, the students are getting degree and they are not industry ready. And of course, there are some people say that it is a big challenge that we cannot train all our students to become all industries ready. So they should acquire the knowledge and be ready to learn the new things. So this is another process of thinking which is coming up. But broadly speaking, no, when a student is learning all this, he should be able to become a lifelong learner. He should be able to design the things on his own, which is correctly defined in the outcome-based education. From our human resources development cell of Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University also, we have been putting so many efforts to see that when the teacher comes, because we train the teachers, when the teacher comes for the training, maybe a 30-day training, sometimes a 15-day training when he is coming, so what exactly is the change that he should take place, and what type of change is required to meet the present day student requirements? Gone are the days where the teacher is becoming a center of attraction, maybe standing on the stage and trying to dictate something and explaining something, and the student is supposed to learn from the teacher. Gone are those days. Now it is all the learner-centric learning process. So learner is a prime important. So when the learner's requirement is to be met, The teacher also should be all-rounder. The teacher cannot say that I know this, you learn this. It should not be. That gap between this should be completely fulfilled. I'm sure this outcome-based learning would make to see that this gap is filled and the student becomes a lifelong learner, and the student becomes he will not study only for the purpose of evaluation or examination. And Professor Spaddy rightly said that OBE, that the letter E, whatever you fix in that, maybe outcome-based education or evaluation or examination, but he rightly stated, and I also got connected to the evaluation, outcome-based evaluation. So this is very, very important, and I appreciate the organizers for taking up this pain to see that this chapter is launched here. And you know very well, Telangana and the state of Hyderabad has become the education hub, where several engineering colleges, several degree colleges are directly connected, and it has become a hub for education, center for education. So this opportunity should be rightly utilized to see that the students who are coming out should become a fruitful degree holders. So thank you for giving this opportunity to me, and I especially thank the management of LRDS Institute of Engineering and Technology for taking up such a wonderful task of taking up this IN4OBE has been brought to the Telangana as well as Hyderabad. I'm sure our university, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, also gets associated with this, and we try to extract the maximum to see that the students of Telangana gets maximum benefit out of this. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity, and I wish good luck for the organizers. And now the session is open for the discussion to the participants. So I request the participants to please raise your hand. Then Professor Spaddy is readily available here. What more is required for us to clarify your queries?
Good afternoon, all. Hello.
Open discussion, panel discussion session. I request VIPs, principals, directors, managements to please raise your questions. Dr. William Spaddy will be glad to respond.
My question is to Dr. Spaddy. I am Professor Lakshminarayana from Hyderabad. See, in India, the curriculum and as Professor Vishwanath has already said, you are churning out only job seekers, not job viewers or thinkers or innovators or entrepreneurs. So, but now the things are changing so much, so fast. Even the present curriculum is not able to meet the requirements to give a good job seekers also. That means, as per OBE, you require a very good teacher, not only teacher, a leader with a vision. Where do you get such visionary teachers, visionary leaders? How do you get those?
Well, I would have to know a lot more about your teacher training and preparation system, or about whether or not the universities themselves actually do any faculty development around the kinds of factors that you're talking about. I would like my colleague Alan Rowe to jump in on this, because I was going to comment in the middle of your presentation a second ago. Okay, I was going to comment. Why aren't they lifelong learners? Well, it's because, from my point of view, the entire system of education and of getting grades and getting credits and getting degrees, etc., is an external motivation and reward system. Okay, I'm only learning this so that I can satisfy these other requirements so that I can get certified as being a good human being. Okay, well, if my whole habit is I'm thinking of various incidents in my life where the students say, well, do we have to learn this if it's not on the exam? Okay, in other words, you know, unless it's a requirement, I don't want to learn it. Well, this is about building an inner orientation and honoring it of being an intrinsic learner. Okay, and through stimulating kinds of activities and curriculum, etc., rather than simply external requirements. So my feeling is it's part of the whole cultural shift that has to happen within universities and then the feeder schools that come from them. So please, Alan, I'd love to have you address this too.
Okay, well, there's a big shift that perhaps we could discuss. I'll take a brief and go this way. The question I would pose to myself or anyone else would be, I'll ask the question, what is your relationship with the outcomes that you are expecting students to perform? And right away, wherever the response is from them, you can learn quite quickly where they are developmentally. And it's a whole path of adult development that one can pay attention to. For example, one of the ones I use is the vertical development framework. And basically, are you self-centric? Is it all just about you? Is it group-centric? Hey, this is what we're supposed to do around here in terms of outcomes. Or here's the skills that I'm working on to help my students learn. Or they start shifting and they start questioning. Is this really the best way we should be doing things? And they start asking questions about how students might transcend themselves. And so it's developmental, and that's a very important part of any training program as you work with faculty. So and administrators or anybody, students particularly. I'll conclude there because I know there's other questions.
Now, if I may add my 2 cents to the answer here, I think you asked where do you find this faculty can do such a job. I believe you already have such a faculty, but the problem is, see, faculty usually perform according to how the school measure them and the tool set that the school provide them with. But the problem is, school in general measure faculty in 3 areas. You look about scholarship, services, and teaching. And most of the school, they focus on basic research. That's how they measure faculty. If the school were to change the model, in addition to measure the only basic research, by expanding the measure teaching, you give it equal weight, then they will give you the incentive for the faculty to look at way differently. I believe you already have such faculty body in your system. They're innovative, they're ready to do so. But I don't think it's the school system must have to shift also in order to provide the opportunity and environment to nurture the faculty to perform accordingly.
See, the faculty has come from the same mold, same thinking. So you require a different way of thinking and different way of training these teachers.
Yes.
So,
And that's what we call a paradigm shift.
yes.
The whole paradigm has to shift around what Al calls a developmental model instead of a requirements model. And I certainly agree with you that education and the orientation of education in the last 20 years across the world has become excessively, I call it careerist. Okay, it's, can I get a job? I mean, the reason we have education in the United States now is so that people can get good, high-paying jobs in the world. Okay, it has nothing to do with human development. It has nothing to do with fulfilling humans' capacities. Okay, or making a better and different world. It's all about being successful in the one we've got right now.
Can I ask some questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions to Professor Paddy. May I ask you, sir, one by one from the participants?
I am Dr. S.K. Chaudhary. Can I speak slightly?
Yeah, Professor Williams Paddy, there is one question from another participant. I am working as a principal. What benefits we get
Sir,
as
can you
an
please,
affiliate?
actually, Subir Chaudhary sir is waiting. May I request Vishwanath sir to kindly permit Subir Chaudhary sir?
Yeah, please, sir, please, let him proceed.
Anyway, it's a wonderful education. But I have one suggestion to the chief man, or why you call it outcome-based education? Why not education for outcome? Why not you change the name education EFO? Why outcome-based this thing? You need basically, finally, education for outcome. So no education should be without outcome. Yes.
I have written a paper with 9 different versions of O, B, and E. All right, and some of them go very, very deep in terms of almost, well, they go very deep in terms of developing the deep spiritual nature of people, okay, not simply the technical, cognitive, etc. nature of people. So there are many, many names for that could go with OBE, and actually, this we
My point is there
Yes.
is no education without outcome in the poor country like India. That's my point. So if that is the priority, the name should be EFO. That's my feeling. Yeah, you are a more expert. You are handling this for a long time. But I have 1 or 2 comments on that. See, basically, we have to dream. I'm a great follower of Dr. Kalam. He said we should dream while sleeping. We should not. We should dream which will not allow you to sleep. So if you dream which doesn't allow you to sleep, then you will become not a bird, but an eagle, where when the rain comes, you will go up and view all the data in the world and will be able to convert things into in my definition, EFO, by doing certain gaps. As somebody was mentioning, that there are some changes. I think we should highlight that one very much. Whole world is now digital. So things, first of all, in our generation, I know I did my PhD afterwards in Cranfield, who have not updated themselves are out from the digital world. So digital world along with micro-units. So micro-units is now open. So every college, it will not be in your home, you can have a small lab. So let us have micro labs. Obviously, you have, if you want to satisfy that, you should give system engineering and technology. Our problem in India is technology. We are good system engineers, they write good papers, they talk a lot, but technology is the gap. So we cannot do all technologies. We have to focus on certain technology, and there should be a group. I'm campaigning this in IEEE. I'm telling all others, computer, electronics, electrical, there is no difference, sir. They're all same. You can have 2 groups. one is computer, electrical, electronics, another is all other engineering. Maybe a third one has come bio. So these three, then you pull a specialist and ask them to give lectures. They're college teachers without experience. By giving them training, they cannot be mastered. We have to hire technologies from outside, as you do abroad. I have been also taken by NASA. I gave lectures. So you please get some people in the college, you try to train them through that. I'm sorry to comment, except few teachers, and that too in IIT mostly, because I have been IIT for a long time with the Bombay IIT. They have projects. So colleges don't have good projects. So the people cannot build just like that. So specialists which are available in India and abroad, at least once in a year or twice in a year, you do that and set up a system engineering and technology lab by focusing. That's what is my point, sir. Then only your dream, whether your dream outcome-based education or the other way, education for outcome will be successful. That's what is my comment.
We may be the captive of a label, and it's not the label that matters. It's what people do. It's the purpose they're pursuing. It's how they do it. Okay. When this first started, okay, teachers were asking, what can I get my kids to learn by the end of the week?
Yes.
All right. Now we're asking, what kind of human beings do we want to send into the world to make it a better place? That is an absolutely different question that comes through 50 years of evolving this concept. Maybe the concept needs a new name. Okay, maybe it needs a new name that opens up more of the creative kinds of really inventive possibilities that you're talking about. Maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Please.
Yeah, good afternoon, all the dignitaries. This is Dr. Nagireddy, Head of IT Department, Large Institute of Engineering and Technology.
Okay.
My question is, how to align OBE with current industrial requirements? As different industries, we have different requirements. So how to align OBE with all these different requirements?
I'm not sure I heard that question clearly. There's a lot of distortion, sir. What?
The question is, how to align OBE with current industrial requirements? Aligning OBE with current industrial requirements.
Yes. Okay. This is something I wanted to mention earlier, but I didn't want to go on and on forever. Okay. My work, Alan's work, and that of others has been heavily influenced by a man named Daniel Goleman, who back in the 1990s wrote a great big thick book called Emotional Intelligence. And he has become the guru of this concept, all right? Which means that intelligence is more than cognitive IQ type intelligence. It also has to do with our inner and our inner, okay, experience as people, with interaction, okay, with how well we in fact not just control our motivations and emotions, but how well we engage with other people, etc. Okay, he wrote another book that never gets any attention, and that's the book that I've presented ideas from that book for years and years. He says that getting your first job when you come out of university, okay, all your grades, all of the things that are the IQ products, okay, the cognitive learning, the technical skills, etc., all the things on your transcript, that's what will get you your first job. After that, if you want your career to go anywhere, you better have strong emotional intelligence. The ability to relate to people, the ability to be a good, not just leader, okay, but a good listener. I mean, all of those interpersonal kinds of qualities, that's what makes a difference, okay? So he said after about the first 5 years in your career, that your technical skills run out, as it were. They are not unique and wonderful anymore. And if you don't have the emotional intelligence to back it up, your career will not advance, you will not mature as a human being, etc. So it's both of these kinds of dimensions that need to be cultivated, and I'm afraid that all of the accreditation requirements and all of these technical numerical requirement things that people have to do, they're just absolutely not capable of measuring or cultivating those essential kinds of things. And it's not the university's job to start doing that. That is something that needs to be cultivated throughout the educational life of a student, okay? From the earliest grades, not just the university's responsibility. I think we have to think of this, okay, in a long-term maturation kind of way.
Okay. Yeah, Professor Paddy sir, there are a few more questions, Paddy sir. With your permission, I'd like to just pose the questions on behalf of the participants.
Dear organizers, I have a request because you told people to raise the hand and there are people waiting in the queue. If possible, you can allow them to talk as in the order it is there in the queue.
Yeah, just before that, there are a few questions through the message. Just I'd like to take up these questions first. Question to Professor Williams Paddy: does IN4OBE helps in evaluating the faculty members performing in curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities?
Say that again. Does IN4OBE? I missed part of that, sir. I'm sorry.
Shall I repeat the question again?
Yeah.
Does IN4OBE helps in evaluating the faculty members' performance in curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities?
Well, right now we have not, to my knowledge, Wajid may want to talk about this, but we have not been in the business, as it were, of evaluating faculty. Okay. We have 2 or 3 people on our key team that are excellent developers of faculty, okay? But it's not, I mean, we haven't been in the faculty assessment and evaluation business. I think Fong has been closest to that kind of thing in the work he's done, but we've never considered that one, sir.
Okay, good. Sir, one more question, sir. Does IN4OBE offers any training for the Indian faculty at USA?
Well, we can put to, where's Wajid? We can put together, I mean, you're looking at a core team of people here. There are several others who are not on this discussion, okay, who are also major resource people. All of us do a lot of, in our careers, have done a ton of consulting and training and development. Okay?
Okay.
So as long as it's in the basic purview of everything we've been talking about here, okay, we could probably organize something like that, yes.
Right. So apart from that, there are few questions from some hand raise is there. We would like to take up one by one.
Sir, Vishwanath sir, may I request Professor Vishwanath sir? I think one participant is eagerly raising the hand. Would you please consider his request?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's why I'm telling you. Okay.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Raghuvir.
Mr. Raghuvir, yeah, will you please just pose your hand, pose your doubt?
Yeah. Here
Yeah.
it is.
So, hello everyone. This is Dr. Raghuvir, Dean of Academics in KL University, Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. So I don't have a doubt, rather, as a practitioner of outcome-based education, I appreciate the initiative from the Telangana chapter, and as rightly pointed out by Professor William, outcome-based education should not be, OBE should not be read as obey, right? That is what is happening, like people obey the orders, they strictly make some outcomes and ensure that the students have attained the outcome or not through various activities that are in turn conducted in a common way for all the students. Like a fish should not be evaluated by climbing the tree, right?
That's
so
right.
that is what Dr. Einstein said. So we need to make sure that this outcome evaluation be done through various variety of activities rather than evaluating again through the standard mode of evaluations which are available to us. And that requires a lot of exposure to the teachers. So sometimes the evaluation need not be in the written form, right? And one of the questions was how do I prepare my students for the futuristic challenges of the industry? So if you keep evaluating the students in the traditional way, thinking that the outcome has to be attained by all the students in a uniform way, then we don't prepare our students for the kind of requirements of the future. Rather, what I suggest is every student should be given the opportunity, like on-demand exams are coming up. We need to give the provision for the students to express themselves or exhibit their outcome attainment in multiple forms. So that is one of the key factors that we need to take into account for the future, so that the students will be given a variety of exhibition of their outcomes. So that is what the point that I wanted to put forth to you. And I wish you all the best, and take the support of people who are actively involved in implementing outcome-based education. For your information, my area of research is need-based learning. So wherein every student should be given something which they actually need. Because having studied 40 or 30 subjects throughout the curriculum, and if they prepare themselves for the job interviews, then what is being attained through 30, 40 subjects that they do over the course of time? So in my opinion, this new education policy that has been introduced by the Government of India along with UGC, University Grants Commission, supports multi-entry, multi-exit scheme through the Academic Bank of Credits, which allows the students to earn their credits as and when they complete the course. And if they wish to leave in between and pursue their passion or make their dream into a startup, so it should be done. So in that case, then we wish the students to immediately apply whatever they learn rather than waiting for 3 or 4 years. And the way the subjects are to be connected together, the discontinuity in their learning, whatever they learn in the first semester and whatever they learn in this 5th or 8th semester must be connected properly. Otherwise, by the time they graduate, they move across the semesters, they lose the continuity of the subject. And again, they need to learn things which is not the appropriate way of learning, and it is not the way of attaining the outcome also. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Professor William.
Thank you, Dr. Raghuvir. Yeah.
I strongly agree with that.
Correct.
I strongly keep doing that.
Very nice. Sir, we go for one more hand raise, sir. Rahana Anjum, would like to listen from you. What is your query?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I'm Dr. Rehana Anjum from Lord's Engineering College. My query is how to involve all stakeholders in OBE process. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mentioned in my presentation that my colleague, Dr. Charles Schwann, and I developed a process way back in the beginning of time that we called strategic design. And it was absolutely a process of working with all the constituents in a school district, what you might call a small region, getting all of those stakeholders involved in asking and answering a series of strategic questions that ultimately allowed the development of what we called an exit outcome framework or a life performance outcome framework. It has to be done. I understand that you are a technical institute, okay? You're going to be influenced more by industry than maybe other kinds of universities will necessarily. I don't think the industry people are asking the right questions. I think they're asking the questions about, okay, can you give us the technical skills that we need in our university, our industry, but I don't think they're asking the deeper questions about what really could develop leaders in their industry, what could develop people who really take on leadership and management responsibility, etc. They're asking for technical workers. And I think that you can do better than that. And I think that the more you develop, as it were, the whole person, the whole learner, the more successful they're going to be. Okay, so the constituency has to be more than just industry. Okay, it's got to represent represent, from my point of view, a variety of kinds of interests.
Not everybody, sir. Some institutes are doing, some institutes like IIT and some regional Indian college, they are trying.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other hand raise? Yeah, Naga Anjaneyalu. Yeah, please ask your.
Yeah, good afternoon, Professor William Spade. I am thankful to you to launch our OBE in our Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology. I am Professor of Mathematics, Lord's Institute of Engineering and Technology. My question is, can you suggest a rubric for evaluation of skill development course? Can you suggest a rubric for evaluation of skill development course?
I think my colleague, well, Wajid could perhaps do that, Fong could do that. I have a couple of rubrics that I use myself, all right, as illustrations of how to build them and implement them. I wouldn't, they may not be as, quote, specific as the kind of thing you're asking for. What is Wajid still here? Yeah, can you answer that one, or you want to try to address that one? A rubric for skill development, a skill development rubric, etc.
Yes, sir. Suggest a rubric for evaluation of skill development course.
Was it unmuted?
Yeah, it seems is unmute.
Sorry about that.
No.
Yes. So the first thing you'll have to define is what are the outcomes, what are skills, and what are competencies. And if you want to target certain skills, like someone talked about lifelong learning skills, so there's a huge research on lifelong learning skills. If you want lifelong learning skills, you need to have problem-solving skills. You need to have emotional intelligence, social and emotional skills. You need to have a critical thinking. When you put all of these together, then you get lifelong learning skills. You need to involve the concepts of mastery learning. So there are some skills that need other skills feeding into them. So once you create the whole hierarchy of that, integrate that into curriculum, and then you can target courses in a systematic manner, achieve the skills overall which the curriculum has to offer. Now, when you're talking about a certain course and you want to develop skills, the course also has to take up activities in a systematic and sequential manner, and then you have to prepare rubrics for that, and rubrics for each activity. And what Raghuveer was also talking about, of different kinds of evaluation besides written tests, they require different kinds of skills being measured with different kinds of activity, different kinds of rubrics, and it gets more and more complex. So there are assessment and evaluation experts in our network. We'll be happy to work with you. This is a very detailed question, but we've answered you in a very brief manner. There's a lot of detail into how to structure this and how to make it happen, and you do need tools. You do need technology and tools to assess those and to make sure that you're learning this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there are no questions, thank you very much for the great discussion. And over to Professor Aklaf Hussain.
Thank you so much, Professor Vishwanathan, for your nice coordination, moderation, and responding to the questions through William Spady sir and other board members of IN4OBE. Thank you so much, all the board members, William Spady sir, as well as Professor Vishwanathan sir. May I now request the Vice Chairman, the vibrant motivator for all of us, Sri Tausif Ahmad sir, to please address the gathering and express vote of thanks. Thank you so much.
Greetings to one and all, the dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, esteemed speakers, guests of today's event, a very, very warm greetings. At the outset, I would like to thank the International Network for Outcome-Based Education IN4OBE for selecting Lord's Institute of Engineering Technology as its Telangana chapter, the first of its kind in India. Our college is accredited by NAC A grade and NBA for continuous improvement and practice of OBE. Now, as Telangana chapter of IN4OBE, we assure that all educational institutions, including primary and secondary schools, intermediate and degree colleges, engineering colleges offering various UG and PG programs in the state of Telangana will be a part of this brilliant initiative taken by IN4OBE. We assure that from our side, we will get most of the all of the stakeholders involved from the education sector under the Telangana region. I thank the chief guest, Professor William G. Spady, the father of outcome-based education, founder and CEO of IN4OBE, for enlightening us all on the basics of OBE practices and how it has evolved into what it is today. My humble thanks and appreciation to the Honorable Chairman of AICTE, Professor Anil D. Sahasrabuddhe for his message on outcome-based education and its relevance to the national education policy introduced by the Ministry of Education, Government of India. I thank Sri Pv Raja Rao, IFS Director, Telangana State Forest Academy, Government of Telangana, Professor V. Venkatramana Garu, Vice Chairman, Telangana State Council of Higher Education, Government of Telangana and DST TBI Coordinator, Professor Manzoor Hussain Sahab, Registrar, JNTU Hyderabad, Professor G.K. Vishwanath Garu, Director, UGC, MHRDC, JNTU Hyderabad, Professor Ilyas Sampa, Program Director, Australian Institute for Higher Education, Australia, Professor Fong Mack, Professor, Gannon University, Pennsylvania, USA, Professor Alan Rowe, Vice President, Retired, Kirkwood Community College, USA, for sharing their excellent insights at this ceremony. I also thank Professor Wajid Hussain, Director, Quality Assurance, Islamic University in Medina, Saudi Arabia, who has been very patient, kind, and supportive in launching this chapter at Hyderabad. Last but not the least, I thank our beloved Chairman, Janab C.A. Basha Muhyiddin Sahab, Secretary Madam Rizwana Begum, Director Dr. Altaf Hussain, Dr. C. Venkat Nasimulu, Principal Sahab, Dr. Hafiz Basha, the Dean IQAC, and all the heads of the departments, faculty members of both LIT and all other colleges that have supported us, that have come forward to participate in this launch ceremony. Thank you and best wishes to all.
Thank you, one and all. Hence, we conclude the session. Thank you.